Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalo nastyeva, 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 gatir anyata. So this little addition here. Today's topic was spontaneous devotional service. So I put together this excerpt here. The topic is obviously spontaneous devotional service, but we're going to hear it from the lotus mouth of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, found in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. So if you're ready, please chant the Maha Mantra loudly.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Lord Caitanya said, "My dear Sanātana, I have now in detail described devotional service according to the regulative principles. Now hear from me about spontaneous devotional service and its characteristics. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Rāgānuga Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan, his or her devotional service is called Rāgānuga Bhakti." So this first part here, very similar to what we studied in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion class. Let us continue. Ishte swarak kasi raga paramavishtata bhavet tanmayiya bhavad bhakti satra ragatmikodita. When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to one's natural inclination to love Him, and is fully absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, that state is called transcendental attachment. And devotional service according to that attachment is called Rāgānuga, or spontaneous devotional service. Notice I like the word natural inclination to love Him. So every one of us has some natural inclination. And as you become more and more purified, that natural inclination is going to become manifest to you. So that should give you great impetus every day to hear and chant nicely. Because by that nice hearing and chanting, that natural inclination is going to be revealed to you. So it's something to look forward to. Let us continue. So this is all Lord Caitanya. The primary characteristic of spontaneous love is deep attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Absorption in thought of Him is a marginal characteristic. Thus, devotional service, which consists of rag, a deep attachment, is called Rāgānuga, spontaneous loving service. If a devotee covets such a position, he or she is considered to be most fortunate. If one follows in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan out of such transcendental covetousness, he or she does not care for the injunctions or reasonings of Shastra. That is the way of spontaneous love. And of course, Lord Caitanya's methodology, he makes a statement, he immediately backs it up by quoting from the Shastras. Virajantim abhivyaktang vrajavasi jinadishu ragatmikam anusrita yasa raganu gochyate. Devotional service in spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested by the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Devotional service that accords with their devotional service is called Rāgānuga Bhakti, or devotional service, following in the wake of spontaneous loving service. Tad bhavadi madhurye shrute dhiryad apekshate natra shastrang na yukting cha tal lobhotpati lakshanam. When an advanced realized devotee hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan in the mellows of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, he or she becomes inclined in one of those ways, and one's intelligence becomes attracted. Indeed, one begins to covet that particular type of devotion. When such covetousness is awakened, one's intelligence no longer depends on the instructions of Shastra or revealed scripture, or on logic and argument. There are two processes by which one may execute this Rāgānuga Bhakti: external and internal. When self-realized, the advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte and executes all the Shastric injunctions, especially those concerning hearing and chanting. But within one's mind, in one's original, purified, self-realized position, one serves Krishna in Vrindavan in his or her particular way. One serves Krishna 24 hours a day, all day and night. This is directly from Lord Caitanya. I very much like that paragraph. You continue to remain like a neophyte, but internally you are serving Krishna in Vrindavan. Sort of like a spiritual covert operation. Nobody knows. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Covetous means that, oh, I wish I could serve Krishna like that devotee. For me, Narada Muni. I wish I could. Now, obviously, I can never. Okay, Narada, move over. It's my turn. Good. All right, you did the RT too many times now. Now it's my turn. No, you're not going to replace Narada Muni. But I can covet that and aspire like that and follow in his footsteps. That's what covet. For instance, you cannot become Yashoda. Okay, Yashoda, your time's up. Like you can become Indra. That you can do. Like somebody may say, I want to be Indra in my next life. There are people, right? Or you might want to become Kuvera. If you read about Kuvera, man, right? So there are people that they read about a certain, so you cannot replace Yashoda, but you can follow in her footsteps, meditate on her, and you can experience similar feelings following that particular devotee. You can experience, you can feel that, you can have that experience. Okay? That you can do. You can follow in the footsteps. For instance, who is that? Putana. Putana, because she offered her breast milk to Krishna, she was awarded a position in Goloka Vrindavan where she gets to serve Krishna in a certain way where she can express motherly affection for Krishna. Okay? Like, but obviously not the same. That's the best I can. Okay? All right. So, next statement by Lord Caitanya. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhavalipsuna karya vraja lokanusarata The advanced devotee who is inclined to spontaneous loving service should follow the activities of a particular associate of Krishna's in Vrindavan. One should execute service externally as a regulated devotee, as well as internally from his or her self-realized position. Thus, one should perform devotional service both externally and internally. Now, that one comment on here about this external, internal. There is also, this is the ideal example, but there is also a negative example of this. The negative example of this is that externally I'm doing my service, but internally I'm thinking of sense gratification. That also can happen. All right? That's obviously is not good. That I'm externally doing all my devotional activities, but internally I'm thinking how I can exploit, how I can enjoy, like that. That is also there for the neophyte. The neophyte has to be careful. So the neophyte also has to develop an internal and not just externally do things, but the neophyte has to also develop some kind of internal cleansing and perform his devotional service externally and internally. For instance, I'll give you an example. Especially pujaris, okay? You could be, let's say you're doing so many artis every day, all right? But while you're doing, the mind now is going, and you're not really right. Or in japa, for instance. The biggest offense, the mother of all offenses, is inattentive. So you're chanting, right? Hare Krishna, but you're thinking of everything else. So that's another example. You have to concentrate on what you're doing.
So how do you bring back the mind?
Loud chanting. You got to chant louder than your mind.
So engage your senses, not only hearing but talking, speaking.
Yes.
Focus it more.
Yes.
Towards chanting.
Yes. You have chanting simply means vibrating and paying attention. Paying attention. That you're getting close. You're in that. You're getting there. Yeah. That.
It's like sometimes you are cheating yourself.
Obviously, you're cheating. You're cheating yourself.
You're thinking you're doing it, but you're not doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That's
how do you get out of that?
only by
Sincerity.
yes, becoming serious and sincere. That's it. All right, let's finish up. Actually, the inhabitants of Vrindavan are very dear to Krishna. If one wants to engage in spontaneous loving service, he or she must follow the inhabitants of Vrindavan and constantly engage in devotional service within one's mind. Krishnang smaranjanang chasya preshtang nija samihitam tat tat kata ratas chasau kuryat vasang vajay sada. The devotee should always think of Krishna within oneself and should choose a very dear devotee who was a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and one's loving relationship with Krishna. And one should live in Vrindavan. If one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he or she should mentally live there. For instance, that's why for a long time my webcasts were all Krishna book webcasts. Because when I would do the webcast on Krishna book, I felt like, right, exactly. Go ahead. No, don't use me. Your spiritual master.
Spiritual master.
Your Prabhupada or your spiritual master.
Spiritual master Prabhupada is not there, then go to the nearest closest, right?
Okay.
Okay. In that
Don't, please.
In that case, you take it as a mentor. Is that
Yes, that's good.
is in the
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Not me. Don't. Fine.
That's your
No. Follow my instruction. Okay? What you can do, seriously, your father. Okay? So you have Prabhupada, you have your spiritual master, Lokanath Maharaj, or if that, your father. That would be better. Okay? In your case. All right? It'll become more tangible for you and much more, you'll get more benefit out of it, more bang for your buck. Okay? Let's continue. Krishna has many types of devotees. Some are servants, some are friends, some are parents, some are conjugal lovers. Devotees who are situated in one of these attitudes of spontaneous love, according to their choice, are considered to be on the path of spontaneous love, spontaneous loving service. If one engages in spontaneous loving service to the Lord, his or her affection for the lotus feet of Krishna gradually increases. In the seed of affection, there is attachment which goes by two names, Rati and Bhav. The Supreme Personality of Godhead comes under the control of such attachment. So that's part one. Now there's another section where this topic of spontaneous devotional service comes. That's in chapter 24 of the Madhya-līlā. Lord Caitanya is continuing to speak to Sanātana. Okay? If one follows the path of philosophical speculation, the absolute truth manifests himself as impersonal Brahman. And if one follows the path of mystic yoga, he manifests himself as the Supersoul. There are two kinds of devotional activity, spontaneous and regulative. By spontaneous devotional service, one attains the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, and by the regulative process, one attains the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By executing spontaneous devotional service in Vrindavan, one attains the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. You see the distinction there? If you want Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, you've got to come to the spontaneous platform. If you don't come to the spontaneous platform, then you're going to go to one Vaikuntha planet. But if you want Krishna, it has to be spontaneous. Yes? No. He is able to see the Supersoul. Not that he becomes. No, he says manifests. He manifests. In other words, remember, Narada as a young boy, he did mystic meditation. He saw the Lord. You remember that in first canto? Okay? Dhruva, the Lord appeared. So if a mystic yogi is mixing bhakti into his meditation, he may be given actual darshan of the Lord. Okay? Remember, in the case of Narada, the Lord appeared and then zoop, and he tried again and again and again. Didn't happen. All right, let's continue. So Lord Caitanya now is continuing to explain to us spontaneous devotional service. So next he quotes from chapter 9 of the 10th canto. That's the Damodar chapter. So at the end of the Damodar chapter, Shukadeva gives his purport. So this is one of the verses of Shukadeva's purport to the Damodar Lila. Nayang Sukapo Bhagavan Dehinang Gopika Sutta. See that name, Gopika? Jnaninang Chatma Bhutanang Yata Bhakti Matam Iha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to those devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service. But he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. By executing regulative devotional service, one becomes an associate of Narayan and attains the Vaikuntha Lokas, the spiritual planets in the spiritual sky. That's Lord Caitanya. So that is the end now. That's what I found. Now there's one more section. All right? So this next section is from the Nectar of Instruction. And it'll give us some more insight into this spontaneous devotional service. And we're going to read something that for me always blows my mind. All right? So this is the 8th verse of the Nectar of Instruction. Tannama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyojya tishtan vrajetad anuragi jana nugami kalang yadkulam eti ub padadesha saram. Rupa Goswami says, the essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braja, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So this verse pretty much sums up everything we learned today in Nectar of Devotion and these excerpts from Caitanya-caritāmṛta. But now comes this really far out purport. So in this purport, this is an excerpt. This is an excerpt. Yes, no problem. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare. Yes, go ahead. Okay. Nectar of Devotion is the complete science of devotional service. Prabhupada says the Nectar of Devotion is the law book for the Krishna consciousness movement. The Nectar of Devotion is simply explaining, like we read in the beginning, the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. So from those 6, the whole Nectar of Devotion is explaining. And the basis of the Nectar of Devotion was the teachings of Lord Caitanya. The Nectar of Instruction is a very small book. I believe there's only 11 verses. And it's simply, like what does Prabhupada say? Prabhupada says, the nectar, Upadesh Amrita. It's the nectar of instruction. So it's short, concise, right? The Nectar of Devotion is a complete analysis Okay? For instance, I'll give you an example. When you read Bhagavatam, beginning with the 5th canto, Prabhupada started to write chapter summaries. So the chapter summary just gives you a short thing. But when you read the chapter, there's more detail. So, nectar of instruction, summary. Nectar of devotion, detail. Okay? You are very welcome. Both written by Rupa Goswami. Both translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. All right, so, this is not the full purport. Just an excerpt, because I wanted to get to the topic. So Prabhupada says, this is Prabhupada's right. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. In other words, in the actual nectar of instruction, Prabhupada first gives his explanation. Then this comes. So I came right there. So here's Bhakti Siddhanta. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train one's mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and His name, form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his or her time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. For me, when I read here, under the direction and protection of an expert devotee, for me, it's Srila Prabhupada. For me. Bhakti Siddhanta continues. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing. So that's the stage I'm at. That's where I'm at right now. In the neophyte stage, one should always, so as much as possible, I'm trying to hear. All right, let's continue. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of His transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasha. When one attains this stage, one becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, one attains the stage of Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated, and it is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi or spiritual trance. After smarana dasha or samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his or her original constitutional position. So what did we just read? Look at what you have to get to in order to get to the stage. Good luck. I mean, when I read this, I go, am I actually going to be able to do this? Wow. That's why I love this. It's like, yeesh. My God. Okay, let's continue. At that time, he or she can perfectly and clearly understand one's eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called Sampatti Dasha, the perfection of life. Boy, I got a lot of work to do. Oh my sheesh. So Bhaktisiddhanta continues, Caitanya-caritāmṛta advises those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in the regulative devotional service of the Lord according to the directions of Scripture. In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, one can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna even without following the regulative principles. This stage is called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. At that stage, the devotee can follow in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. This is called Rāgānuga Bhakti. Rāgānuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service, can be executed in the Shantaras when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or the stick or flute in the hand of Krishna, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. In the Dasya Ras, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patraka, or Raktaka. In the friendly Sakya Ras, one can become a friend like Baladev, Sridama, or Sudama. In the Vatsalya Ras, characterized by parental affection, one can become like Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And in the Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Srimati Radharani or her lady friends, such as Lalita, and her serving maids, Manjaris, like Rupa and Rati. Rupa Goswami was this Rupa Manjari. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. And that is Bhaktisiddhanta. Good luck with your achieving your original constitutional position.